Hello and welcome back to the Chelmsford News Show. I'm Tom Christiano. Well, I'm very excited because, as you can see in the background, there's an old mill back here, or some sort of waterfalls, which George Ripsom, who is right here, is going to tell us all about today. How are you, George?
I'm reasonably well. Thanks, Tom. Glad to have you up here with us.
Well, thank you for doing this tour with us, George. It's going to be hopefully a great historical document for the town to finally get all this documented in video, because we'll do an interview now and then later we'll tour around the property, if you don't mind, and you'll show us all of what's there. Okay, George?
We can do that. I'm looking forward to it.
Great. So, George, what is this place? Could you tell us the background of it?
This is the historic mill, the first mill in the town of Chelmsford. And the town of Chelmsford once encompassed Tingsboro and Lowell and 4 or 3 different towns, all which were broken out. But it was given to Captain Adams in 1656, along with 500 acres of ground, and he was
given to him by the British Empire?
By the king. It was a charter from the king, and all the captain had to do was build a mill, which he would sawmill first, and then, because they had to have a house before anything else, they could have a garden and probably subsist. And then they had, shortly thereafter, they all had crops and needed to grind them. And so he took aboard another 100 acres and the responsibility for grinding the grain, corn, I guess.
Yeah.
And that remained with the Adams family until the middle of the 1800s. And
could I ask, which part of the Adams family was this? I understand this person might have been related to Samuel Adams or something?
These were the original Adams from Quincy, Massachusetts. And there were, well, I don't remember exactly how many of all of the offshoots were, but I really don't remember.
That's fine, George. Yeah. So anyway, an Adams family had this property, right, up for a while, quite a while.
Well, they all came up here from by way of Concord, and then came out here to Chelmsford. And this particular property, not only did he have the rights to saw the mill, and mill is, that.
Yeah.
But he had the water rights for 100 years, and somehow or other that persists right up to this very moment. We still have the rights to this water, and we're using it for a backdrop for our conversation today.
Yes, when we do our tour later on, you'll see the beautiful waterfall back there. It's in back of us in this video. We could hear it now from here. I don't know if you could hear it at home, but it's a wonderful waterfall. And this place eventually will be open for all of you Chelmsfordians and others to visit if you like, right, George?
That is the intention, and we are in the process of preparing it, so little by little.
How long, or when do you think that'll be, George, when visitors could stop by?
Visitors would be welcome if they didn't come in a group. So if you have 2 or 3 in the family and we're visible, you'd be welcome. We would show you around.
Wonderful. I think I've been here for 42 years now in Chelmsford, and I've driven by this mill place many times. I only took some pictures by the mill one day, but I've never been inside and like we are going to be today and see everything that's here. It's amazing. It's a wonderful historical location and facility that we have here. I believe it first began in 1 year after Chelmsford was incorporated. This began in 1656, was it, George?
That was when it came aboard, and it was just a little stream, and now we have a lake behind this dam, which is 50 acres. So
50 acres of land or the lake of water. Wow.
And I forget how many million cubic feet of water is there, but it fluctuates.
Well, the water is flowing over the dam nicely today, and that isn't always the case, right, George? But yesterday we had quite a bit of rainfall, or some rainfall.
We were here at the office in the morning, and the water behind us was totally dry. And you can see that it is not dry anymore.
Oh, it's flowing beautifully today, which we'll see later when we do the tour. So the Adams family had it for a while. It was a sawmill, and then in the 1800s, was it? They would use it as ice facility, right, to get ice out of the lake and everything.
They did do harvest ice during the winter. Excuse me, and that went on until the as late as the early 1900s.
Early 1900s, they were, up until that time, they were using this, they had an ice house over here.
Oh, yes. And as I say, the technology of sawmills and the rest of that changed during the late 1800s, and they no longer were grinding with, we have a grinding wheel out in the front yard over here. But we don't
take a look at that when we do the tour, yes. A closer look.
And anyway, they didn't do that anymore after the middle 1800s.
Oh, that was the middle 1800s. So they used to grind the corn primarily, maybe wheat too, or no? But
it was corn that was primarily.
So they ground it over here, and then how did they sell it? Do you have any idea? How did they market all this corn that they were grinding here? Do they go to the little store in the center, or do the farmers go around house to house? Do you have any idea?
No, the farmers would come here with their loads of corn and turn it over to the miller, and he would turn it into a little sack of cornmeal and give it back to the farmer.
So we gave it to the farmer, and then how would the farmer sell it to the residents? Do you have any idea?
Its original purpose was subsistence, so that I grew corn, and I had enough for myself and maybe my neighbor and that sort of thing. So it wasn't strongly commercial.
Oh, I see. Not a strong commercial. So in more modern times, there was an individual who bought this and managed it and generated electricity here, right? What was his name again?
His name was Lloyd Green.
Lloyd Green. When did he buy this property? Do you have any idea, George?
He looked around when the Mass Turnpike came through Newton. He had a TV repair and sales and business, and actually had a building down there. But the turnpike came through and says, you don't have a building anymore. And he decided that if he could generate electricity, that could be a money-making thing that he could work upon. And so in 1954, he finally found the property, and that is here.
So he bought it. Did it have all these houses and buildings here then, George?
I'm glad you asked. The only thing that it had at that time was about half of the dam that you see. It was not working as a commercial anything, but he did intend that it was going to be something that he could generate electricity, and so he bought that, and began to build these buildings, and now there are 9 of them.
9 buildings here. Wow. Hopefully we'll get to see all 9 of them in our little tour after this interview.
Yes, and everything will be open to you if you wish.
Wonderful, George. So, in 1954, Lloyd Green bought this property. How long do you think it took him to start selling generating and selling the electricity?
He was online selling electricity in the middle 60s. And
So it took quite a while.
oh yes. And indeed, the first thing that he did, there are 2 generating facilities here. You can, where we're sitting right now, you can look and see the mill wheel, which, by the way, he built here in the backyard and then installed it. And across the stream is a turbine. It's a German turbine, and that was another generator of electricity, and that was his original intention.
So since the middle 1960s, electricity has been generated from this mill.
Well, he had a 20-year contract with the National Grid. At the time, which he would have renewed the contract, it was not on terms that were useful to him, and so since the late 80s, he has not generated electricity.
Since the late 80s, so about 25 years approximately, electricity has been generated from here and sold, you might say. But we still generate electricity here, right, George? Did I hear you say?
It's for demonstration purposes now.
For demonstration purposes.
It has the capability, but there would be all the problem of signing the papers and what's it going to provide and the rest of that. So yes, it's capable, but we use it for demonstration only.
So in the late 80s, they stopped producing that electricity except for demonstration purposes. And then when did Mr. Lloyd George, leave and sell this property or give it to you and to the town, basically?
Well, he passed away. Excuse me, my frog is trying to strangle me. He passed away in 2011.
Oh, so approximately 8 years ago, he passed away, Mr. George. And was he living right here in Chelmsford? Right in this house?
Right in this house.
Nice.
And he had asked me years ago if he went away. He had no children. We had only 2 half-sisters, and they were not involved in this at all. So he asked, would I take responsibility and turn it into an educational asset to the town?
And you agreed, George. You agreed.
I was younger then.
8 years ago. Wow. So you've been kind of managing this place for the past 8 years, it sounds like.
Yes, and we still have not got it all together, and we are not demonstrating, we're not showing on an organized manner, but for occasional visitors, yeah.
Yes. And maybe this video will show the residents of Chelmsford and others what we have here in this beautiful facility, and eventually maybe we'll open it more to tours with small numbers of people stopping by, right?
We visualize that as being a final objective.
Could I ask, do you have a board of directors or anything, George?
We have a small board of only at the moment 4 people. But we would certainly welcome a couple more people that would like to join us. And right now we're not only managing in the board of directors kind of mode, but we are also out here working. But
You come here, do you come here every Tuesday and Thursday, George?
we schedule every Tuesday and Thursday, and somebody is usually around 2 or 3 other times in the week.
Wonderful. I saw Jim Trebo. He's helping out, a volunteer here. He comes by almost every Tuesday and Thursday. He was helping cutting the grass and trimming a few minutes ago. And then you had this nice lady came from a totally different town, right? She comes over to help out.
Ruth Green, she is, as Lloyd, was a Green with E. Green. And
Not a relative.
no relative at all. She, her husband and Lloyd, while Lloyd had that business in Newton, he got to know Mrs. Green's husband. They were business associates. And many years later, when her husband and Lloyd were working here, they were associated here. And so she's been with the property a long time.
And she has, and I saw her today. I met her when I first came here today. So basically, could I ask about the finances, George? How do we sustain this place? How do we pay for it?
Lloyd provided for the care and feeding of this place, and we as a board utilize those funds to do the maintenance that is required.
You're doing a great job, George. The place looks fantastic.
It has taken a little bit of work, but at the moment it is lovely, and I'm looking forward to the time that we are able to open it and take tours and people through it.
Well, you're doing a great job here, George, and the entire board, and with Jim Trebo helping and Ms. Green helping, and it's a wonderful facility for the people in Chelmsford. By the way, we're located right off of Mill Road, heading down Boston Road, then you take a left onto Mill Road, you drive down about a half a mile, and you'll see it on the right-hand side. Most of you probably know where this facility is. And maybe on a Tuesday or Thursday, if you don't have a ton of people, you could stop by, knock on the door, see if somebody's here, and they could maybe give you a quick tour. But hopefully you'll enjoy this video tour that George is going to lead us all around the property next. Is there anything else we should say, George, in our little interview?
The only thing is we should acknowledge the other members of the board, and one of them is David Sperry, who for a living works for Raytheon, and the other is Tom St. Germain, who in his other life is retired.
But he used to be a water commissioner, maybe? That's the one I'm thinking of.
No, he's the cemetery commissioner.
Oh, cemetery. But wasn't he on the water? Maybe he was. I don't know. Many years ago. But anyway, I think he's been on my show in the past. And I know David Sperry as well. So it's great. A nice small community we have here in Chelmsford. We all know each other.
We do indeed, and depend upon each other greatly, greatly.
And George, a former Chelmsford Citizen of the Year. I mean, he's still a Citizen of the Year in my eyes. But George does so much for this town. George Ripsom here, and his wife Betty as well. They're also on the board of directors for the Chelmsford Garrison House, and I'm a member over there as well. So I see George there quite often helping out. George is the treasurer there as well, come to think of it. So George, even though George and I have been around a little bit, George is still volunteering so much for the town of Chelmsford and its people, and we have a lot to thank him for, I think. So thank you very much, George.
I appreciate your acknowledgement, but more, I'm glad you're out here, and let's show this to the people.
Let's do the tour now. Thank you very much.
All right, we're standing now at the base of the dam, but on your left is the Turbine House. Inside of there is the last electrical generation facility that Lloyd incorporated, and it is capable of generating 15 kilowatts of electricity, and we were selling that into the grid for national grid. It no longer is being used because this particular kind of facility must be underwater all the time, and unfortunately our lake has a lot of water, but it goes dry down here in the stream beside us. But our pleasure is showing the wheel, and that is geared to our generator in the turbine house, in the mill house behind us. Interestingly enough, when we look at that, Lloyd actually built that in the backyard here, and as you can see, it is 12 feet high and 4 feet across. And at the moment, when I was telling Tom, yesterday we were almost dry here, and the water was not coming down at all. Yesterday, Mother Nature cooperated, and now we have a lot of water, and it's here for you to enjoy. Here we're standing, looking up about half of Russel Mill Pond. Russel Mill Pond actually goes beyond there another half a mile past South Row School, and in total is about 51 acres of water. I've at the moment lost exactly how many gallons of water is in there, but this in the center is about 15 feet deep. And then, of course, here at the close end is down to about 5 feet. We then go through a safety valve, if you will, and it's just the gatehouse. If the water in the mill pond gets to be too deep, we can open that and pass another 3.5 by 8 feet of water and safety so that it doesn't flow over. And our real purpose is in the mill building. We showed you the mill wheel on the outside, and on the top of this building is a cupola containing a school bell that once was in the South Row School many years ago. And they finally passed, and between us and the mill building is the raise and lower controls for the gates of the dam. And finally, over to our right is a twin set of controls that admit water to the turbine house, which we saw from the other side a moment ago. Here we are in the generator unit number 1. That water wheel out in the back that we showed a moment ago, it is brought into the house, drives this huge wheel, which then drives this little wheel inside of the green cover. It once was it is a Westinghouse unit, but that's unimportant because its purpose is to drive this generator here and get the 25 kilowatts of power that one time we were selling to National Grid. We have 2 boards which tells us the state of the wheel. We have to keep it lubricated or else it will die quickly. But now we have the controls for the boards on the top of the dam, and anytime that we have to raise or lower it, we raise up, and we have three of them. The two that you see with the water flowing over them, and the one that supplies the flume, the black channel here. And these are independent of that all-important panel there with only one big switch, and that's the one that puts the electricity into the national grid grouping, and we go out and sell the power. We're not doing that now, but it is still capable of it at any time we would sign the contract. And as we're passing along here, I'm just going to mention that there were no walls, as you see behind us. Lloyd built these and all the other walls that are about this property. And, well, it was a big task, and it's a little task still to maintain them. Down here on the first floor of the mill house, we had the generator we just saw, and after it stopped being a sawmill, they harvested ice on the pond out behind us, and here are some of the tools which were used during its latter part of 1800s and early part of 1900s life. And we have the instructions of what each of those pieces of equipment do. Over the years, Lloyd had other things to do besides work on the mill, and behind me is the mill house. And no, it isn't. It's the well house, and it is a 250-foot well that Lloyd put in to water the property. Beyond that is the meeting house now, and it's just a standard meeting house with tables and chairs and a flag.
That's nice.
It used to be the boathouse, but we no longer have a boat that's going up there, and so we've converted it to the meeting room. And then beyond that further is the gazebo, and it's nothing but a beautiful place to sit on a summer's evening and admire the sun. And that is, I guess we've had it about 30 years, but it's just for enjoyment. All right, as part of Lloyd's Remembrance Garden, he has these three stones, which he always assured people these were not where the people were interred, but this is just in their remembrance. So this is to Lloyd's father, to Mrs. Green, to Mrs. Tinker, and then to Lloyd himself.
Lloyd himself is on the right.
Yeah, and this separate stone on the right is to Lloyd, born in 1917, and his service in World War II, and then moving up here to the Chelmsford site. And Mrs. Tinker was a classic ballroom. She was and his associate for many years until her demise in 2000. Over the years, Lloyd had other things to do besides work on the mill, and behind me is the mill house. And no, it isn't. It's the well house, and it is a 250-foot well that Lloyd put in to water the property. Beyond that is the meeting house now, and it's just a standard meeting house with tables and chairs and a flag.
That's nice.
It used to be the boathouse, but we no longer have a boat that's going up there, and so we've converted it to the meeting room. And then beyond that further is the gazebo, and it's nothing but a beautiful place to sit on a summer's evening and admire the sun. And that is, I guess we've had it about 30 years, but it's just for enjoyment.